Now I'd like to go on and tell a few stories that I like. It's my talk, so I just pick the stories, I guess. This photograph is probably one of the most famous photographs of the 387th aircraft. It shows shooting in, dropping a string of bombs. This is the complete picture, because it shows Dan Fino above as well. But it's normally cropped just to show the shooting in. Now during the war, this was used by the newspapers, and it says, American 9th Air Force bombers hammering the Germans along the French coast. Well, I'll have you know, the town in the background is Bournemouth on the south coast of England. And we thought she was on our side. There is a good explanation. It wasn't navigational error. A strip of land to the south of Bournemouth called Studland Bay was set up with all copies of the German defences on the beaches. And then a series of practice missions were run, and this was flown on April 26th, to drop bombs on those defence structures to see what effect different ordnance would have, which would help the ground troops landing on D-Day. Now, Studland Bay today is a nudist colony. I would like to go and research the area very carefully, but my wife has other ideas on that one. I'm going to relate a story now told to us by John Correll of the 559th. It's never been verified, so I'm probably going into dangerous territory here, but John Nirenhouse, the pilot, is not with us. And if he doesn't buy a copy of the video, I'm lucky I won't get the lawsuit. His aircraft, Hot Garters, on the 5th of February 1944, the target was La Longueville, a V1 site, Doodlebug site on the coast of France. He was scheduled as a spare aircraft. Now, nobody liked to be in the spare aircraft. You were prepared, you were briefed, you had the pre-mission nerves just like everybody else. You flew to the channel, and if nobody dropped out, you dropped your bomb safe in the channel, you came home. All for nothing. Later on, they allowed the spare aircraft to join as a seventh member of the flight and complete the missions. On this day, he reached the channel. Nobody dropped out. So he peeled out to head home. It was cloudy. They flew along for a while, and they thought it's about time they sat down and found an airfield. They broke through the cloud, found an airfield, didn't look familiar, but they thought they'd land. And as they were making the approach in the circuit, the engineer, Sergeant Bozo, said, "Why are they firing flares at us?" At which point John Nirenhouse said, "Christ, that's not flares, that's flak." They'd inadvertently crossed the channel and were trying to make an approach on a Luftwaffe airfield. They hobtailed out of there and headed back west, the right direction, above the clouds, flew along for a little while. It must be about time, we must be getting near the base. Let's let down again. They did, right over the centre of London, and the British ACAC started firing at them. So they had the honour of being fired at on both sides on the same day whilst they were the spare. But as they were fired at, they claimed the mission. On the same mission, Flight Officer Davis of the 558th took a flak hit to his right engine. He immediately released his bombs and headed back to England. His hydraulics were out as well. He had no brakes, he had no flaps. He landed at the first airfield he came to, which was Friston on the south coast near Beachy Head. Now, Friston is a fighter base and quite short. Without brakes, he overran the airfield and ended up in this state. Fortunately, none of the crew was seriously hurt. But quite miraculously is that you see the hedge line behind the aeroplane. There's a 200-foot cliff there. Very fortunate. He'd flown on single engine for 1 hour and 10 minutes, which at that time was quite an achievement. But for real single engine achievement, we've got to look to Captain Alan Sherman. Sherman to all his mates, seen here with his English girlfriend, whom he later married. 10 days after Flight Officer Davis's incident, he was flying to a V1 site at Benneville when his left engine was hit by flak and started to run very badly. He shut down the engine, pulled out of the formation, and headed home. Very quickly, 4 RAF Spitfires joined him on his wings and offered him protection, and he struggled back across the channel. Halfway across the channel, he got very concerned about the right engine cylinder head temperatures and oil temperatures, so he decided to restart the bad engine to assist the failing right engine. Just as he did so, the right engine cut completely. 2 single engines on one mission in a twin-engine airplane is quite something. If that wasn't enough, he returned to Chipping-Ongar, Willingale, and made an approach, but it was too high and too fast. So he calmly asked his co-pilot to raise the gear, raise the flaps, and he went round again on single engine. A remarkable feat of flying. Sherman was a very good pilot. Nobody thought it could be done. This was the aircraft he was flying that day, Mitch's Bitch. Now this story came to me from Dan Morse, who's with us tonight. Good old Dan. I like this story. It was the 12th of June, and the airplane Little Chum's Warhorse was being flown by Lieutenant James to the defended town of Boulogne. They took flak hit, again hydraulics out, but they cranked the gear down and circled the airfield whilst all the rest of the formation landed, and then came in for his landing. And he would use the air bottle to seize the brakes on and come to a stop. Well, they landed, they pulled the lanyard for the air bottle and nothing happened. That had been hit as well. And Dan says he was standing near the control tower when Lieutenant James went whizzing by, powerless to do anything, and Lieutenant James dipped his head, saluted, and disappeared into the English countryside. 2 fields later, Little Chum's Warhorse came to a halt. The crew got out and went away. The armament men removed all the ammunition, and the local kids used it as a toy. My father has still got the plexiglass from the tower turret, as some of you heard earlier today. So that's how that airplane remained. You can't have a talk about the group, I suppose, without talking about some of the rougher missions. One of the first real rough ones was the 25th of February 1944 to Venlo. It was a maximum effort, 3 boxes. Initially meant to be 3 boxes of 18, the standard pattern, but the 3rd box of the 558 Squadron, led by Major Richardson, was depleted by aborts and was down to about 16 or 15 aeroplanes. The first 2 boxes bombed short. They misidentified the target and turned for home. Major Richardson realized the error and pushed on to the target alone. The fighter escort had left with the others, thinking they would follow. This is the strike camera from Hot Rock, recording the bombs over Venlo Airfield. They turned off the target and headed for home. Halfway over the English Channel, German Focke-Wulf 190s intercepted them and quickly shot down 4 of their number, one of which was Lieutenant Falls and his aeroplane Buddy Falls, which is the aircraft you can see on the wing of Hot Rock. It was a hard price to pay, 28 men missing in the North Sea, including Major Richardson. It was a tough day for the group. And of course, none of you who are there will forget the incident on 9th of December 1944, when you're at Clastres, when Lieutenant Allman's aircraft hit prop wash on landing, overturned and crashed just off the end of the runway. The crash crews and others went to assist the crew getting out of the airplane. What they didn't realize is the bomb load of 16 250-pound bombs was still on board. The plane burned and the bombs exploded, killing 27 men and seriously injuring 10 more. Most of the dead were all the crash crews and ambulance crews of the group. What is disappointing from our point of view is that the names are not recorded in the records. We can name about half of them, and that is all, which I think is sad.